On Tech News Today, the guy who invented the web says Europe's right to be forgotten is dangerous. Plus, Google adds some cool new features to Hangouts and Google Plus, and the police raid Pirate Bay. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and if you'd like to help us design our new website, I invite you to visit twit.to/navtest. We've got 8 quick questions we'd like to ask you that will help us make the navigation easier to use. That's twit.to/navtest. Thanks a lot.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, December 10th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by LittleBits, the easy way to build electronics with modular building blocks. Go to littlebits.com and enter the promo code TNT, and you'll get $20 off your purchase of $80 or more. And by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster, easier, and cheaper. Post your job to 50-plus job boards with one click. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who reported. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and good morning, Jason Cleanthes. How you doing, man? See, that's how he's.
I'm doing good. He's doing. Sorry about that. I had my mic muted. Morning, Mike.
The important thing is that you don't mute my mic.
I had my mic muted, not Mike's mic.
All right. Well, I'll take it. And we have a huge show today. We've got some fantastic guests, some of my favorite guests. So let's just jump right into it. Tim Berners-Lee, who created the web, said at a web conference today in Paris that Europe's right to be forgotten rule is a bad and dangerous idea. He said the right to access history is important. Stephen Shankland is a senior writer for CNET News and joins us now. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, before we get into Tim Berners-Lee's statements, can you summarize briefly the right to be forgotten?
So this is a rule that the European regulators have passed. Basically, what it does is it requires that sites like chiefly search engines, the ones that are most affected, people can complain if they think that there's some information on the internet that's irrelevant about them, that's out of date, that no longer needs to be out there on the internet, and they can file a request. And if it's deemed appropriate, then that has to be scrubbed out of the search engine. So this is called the right to be forgotten rule. And of course, the search engine companies don't like it because for them, it's kind of removing actual information that people might want to find. It's kind of controversial for that reason, but it also does give people some privacy. If there's something that happened long ago in their past, then it can actually be removed, and maybe it gives them a chance for a fresh start.
And just to be clear, that it's the search engine companies themselves that make the decision. Of course, those decisions could be appealed in a court of law later, but essentially Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, companies like that are the ones who decide whether it meets the letter of the law. And the other point that needs to be emphasized is the fact that this affects only the search results that come up when somebody's actual name is searched for. If you search for some other words and the person is involved, those search results are unaffected by the right to be forgotten.
That's correct. And also there's some categories that are explicitly protected, like journalism and free speech. There's some things like that. If you're a public figure, then you can't just request to have your information scrubbed.
Okay, so Tim Berners-Lee is an advocate for individual privacy. He speaks very passionately about privacy. Why does he dislike the right to be forgotten?
Well, he believes that there's a better way to handle the issue, which is through rules that actually constrain what people can do with information that's available. So his point is that if a lot of stuff can be removed from the internet, then it's gone forever. History can be effectively rewritten, and free speech rights can be infringed on, in effect. And so what he'd like to see is a different approach. Instead of removing the information from the internet in the first place, you constrain what can be done with it. So if there's something on your record from when you were a kid, if you had some conviction for some juvenile infringement, well, then an employer, for example, couldn't take that into account when they were considering hiring you or maybe giving you a raise or something like that, or maybe some financial record, financial black mark on your record. Maybe a bank wouldn't be able to take that into account if it were too far in the past. So this is similar to some actual rules that are out there, anti-discrimination rules. So it's not a complete fantasy that he has this suggestion. Of course, it's very difficult to tell people that they can't think about if you have a black mark on your record. It's hard to tell people just to ignore that.
Yeah, it's a tough problem to a certain extent. The problem exists because of the failure of search engine algorithms. I mean, if somebody did something as a teenager and then they've grown up and they've had a life that's been marked by different things that popped up on the web here and there, the search engine results for that person's name should show something that resembles a balanced picture of that person, not just the teenage indiscretions. And so it really is about, and it sounds like he's advocating, better search engine ranking algorithms. The problem is that lots and lots of people have their 15 minutes of fame in a negative context, and they really don't show up on the internet that much. I mean, some people can do an ego search and get thousands of links. Other people get 5 links. And if you're somebody who isn't really super active on social media and you haven't been in the news other than that one horrible thing that happened to you years and years ago, it's very difficult even for search engines to figure out how to use algorithms to present a balanced part of your life if your life is not in fact lived online. Does he suggest anything specific other than just generally speaking we need to find another way?
No, he was speaking very generally. He basically is an advocate of the rule of law. So his opinion is that society can choose what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And his belief is that the way to handle this is through not by hiding the information, but by saying that information can't be a factor. So it's a fair point. I guess from the other side, there are other factors. Something you didn't mention, which is some people are victims of smear campaigns online. So not everything online is necessarily, something that's your own fault because you did something because you're an idiot when you're 16 years old. There can be people who are deliberately attacked. Now, ideally, the search engines can screen something like that out if there is false information. There's nobody out there arguing that false, defamatory, libelous information should stay up there on the internet if it's not true. So, I think that ultimately that's a big part of solving this problem is making sure that what is out there is the truth. But of course, when it's people talking about their reputations and their image, it's really hard to say what exactly is true. And that's why there are companies like Reputation.com whose job it is to go out there and try to make you look like you have a good reputation online.
That's one of the things that concerns me about the right to be forgotten is that people who have the means to use reputation management services are going to disproportionately have their histories kind of scrubbed to the greatest extent possible through this right to be forgotten, whereas people who don't have the means or the time or the money or whatever are going to be less so. So there's an imbalance based on people's resources, which sounds...
Welcome to the problem of our age. It's
exactly.
I don't think it's anything new that people with power have an easier time keeping their power, and people without it don't. This is just yet another instance of that particular societal difficulty.
Exactly. Now, there's a sense that's been discussed around this topic and other topics of a sensitivity toward cultural imperialism in Europe, especially in France. They're especially vocal about that. Now, the French Data Protection Authority is headed by Isabelle I can't say her name. Falquet-Perotine. I'm sure that there's a real pronunciation out there somewhere. And she also heads the EU's group of 28 national privacy regulators. And she's really pushing for several things, and it seems to be driven by a kind of sense that Europe and France need to be protected from American cultural influence as it appears coming from the web. Now, so there's this kind of nationalism thing going on. Tim Berners-Lee is a European. He invented the web while in Switzerland, I believe. The web, which is arguably the most important internet application and maybe even the most important application ever of any kind, is a European product, if you will. Are his objections to the right to be forgotten likely to be influential for that reason?
It's really hard to say. I think it's very interesting that he took this stance because generally his beliefs, and he's becoming increasingly political, even though he's a computer scientist, he's becoming he's concerning himself much more in the affairs of politics, privacy, net neutrality, technical issues, but issues that involve people and rights and the right way to behave. So he has some clout in that department. And I think being European, he did invent the web 25 years ago when he was at the European Laboratory for Particle Research, a place called CERN near Geneva in Switzerland. I would disagree with you that the web is European, though. I think it really is global, and I think that's his view. I think it's a fair point. It's perhaps more Western European and American than, say, Latin American or Asian. But I don't think that he gets a special pass just because he was, the first days of the web began in Switzerland. I think he's going to have to make his case on the merits here. The Europeans do seem sensitive about the power of the American technology companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft. That's a continuing problem. I think some of it is economic worries and fretting that they're in the thrall of a foreign power. Nobody really enjoys being in that position. Look at how the United States views China right now. So I don't think that's that unusual, but in France in particular, there's certainly an urge to protect the culture. They have a special ministry that creates new words so that American slang doesn't creep into the language quite so much. So that's kind of a continuing cultural trait. Frankly, I think the web breaks down a lot of those barriers. I live in France, and it's really hard for me not to look at the world as a global community to a certain degree, just because so much of what happens online is by its very nature not geographic.
Now, you are, as you mentioned, you're based in Paris, a fact which makes me green with jealousy, I have to say. Lucky bastard. No, you're not a bastard. You're a really nice guy, but you are lucky to live in Paris. Now, you go into the Le Web. I haven't been to that show ever. I've heard from friends of mine who've attended the show, and it's been a really awesome show. What is it like these days in the last couple of years? Is it still a really great show?
Yeah, it's a pretty good show. The guy who runs it, Loic Lemeur, is an entrepreneur himself. Most recently, I think Seismic was his most recent company, and he's a very interesting guy. He's provocative, and he can draw a pretty good crowd. So there, you get some second-tier executives instead of CEOs, maybe, but you get a good selection of people in the tech business, and I think it's a pretty reasonably healthy show. They've had some issues, I think, expanding to the UK, but the original one here in Paris is still a pretty good show. It's kind of a little mini Silicon Valley. A lot of people come out from California and give their spiels, but it's also got a European flavor. A lot of European startups, European technology companies make an appearance. It's pretty. I think it's a reasonable show.
Well, I personally love it when shows don't feature nothing but CEOs. CEOs tend to be boring. They tend to be on message and guarded. And it's the engineers and others in the company that tend to be more interesting. Stephen Shankland is at news.cnet.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at STShank. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right. Just a sec, we're going to tell you what's happening with Google Plus and Hangouts. But first, I want to tell you about our new sponsor, Little Bits. Now, if you're like me, when you were a little kid, you used to build all kinds of amazing stuff that was just a lot of fun. Well, I have good news for you. You don't have to grow up. Thanks to Little Bits, you can still play with this kind of stuff. Like, check this out. This is something Anthony put together. If you look at this here, this is just a very simple, basically thing. You turn on the switch here, and then creates a buzzer. Now, this is basically not something that's built up. This is just an example. You see how these are connected with magnets here. There's a battery. It's a very simple electronics thing, and this solves the problem that many of us have when we want to be makers, we want to build things. We may not have the engineering skills to build the kinds of things that we want, but we're really interested in being creative and coming up and inventing and designing things that are really, really cool. So Little Bits actually solves that problem because engineers, really brilliant engineers, have put together all the building blocks of just about anything you'd like to build. It's really, really cool. These modular building blocks just snap together very simply, and it's great for artists, designers, engineers, students, children. adult children, tinkerers, hobbyists, musicians, programmers, no matter who you are, you can get a lot of time in and a lot of fun, have a lot of fun with Littlebits because you can build whatever you want. They have over 60 modules which can be combined in virtually limitless creative combinations. Just imagine what you can make. And Littlebits has something for everyone in the holidays, whether you're a musician, programmer, whether you're just a geek. If you watch this show, you're probably a geek. I mean, let's be honest. And you're going to love something like this. Littlebits is just really an amazing gift for either yourself or the geek in your life. They have holiday gift guides on their sites so you can find the perfect gift. They'll help you through that. And again, this is a really unusual, don't go to the mall, get the geek in your life something really, really cool. And Littlebits is the cool thing of the year. Now, new customers get $20 off purchases of $80 or more by going to littlebits.com and entering the promo code TNT. Shipping in the United States is free. That's littlebits.com. The promo code is TNT. And we thank Littlebits for their support of this show. And by the way, if you're a Littlebits user, you've been building something, take a picture of it. Post it on Instagram. We'd love to check it out. So Littlebits is our new sponsor. We're glad to have them. Well, Google added some improvements today to Google Hangouts for Android, including trivial additions like stickers and Easter eggs, but also a really interesting location feature. When someone asks you where you are, Hangouts will basically recognize those words and automatically offer to share your location when you drop a pin on a map. Google also announced yesterday new gender identity options on Google Plus, an infinity of options, according to an announcement of the feature on a Google Plus post. Nathan Olivarez-Giles writes for The Wall Street Journal and joins us now to talk about this. Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Now, before we get into the location feature, let's talk about stickers. What's a sticker and how would that be used in a Google Plus Hangout?
Yeah, well, stickers, they kind of originated in messaging apps in Asia and Japan and Korea, and they're very, very popular. But basically, it's kind of like a heightened version of an emoticon. You might share a smiley face to show that, hey, I'm smiling, I'm happy. Well, a sticker, you might actually have like a full-bodied cartoon, who's like dancing around with a smiley face or something like this. So Google reached out to, I think, 16 different artists to kind of get these different custom stickers out there. And you see them in Facebook Messenger, you see them now in Hangouts, you see them in other apps like Line and Kakao Talk and different competing messaging apps. So it's a very, very popular idea. It's almost like an expected feature now for messaging apps.
Okay, and can you tell us about the Easter eggs? I mean, it sounds like they announced the Easter eggs. Aren't they supposed to say nothing about it and let people discover them? Anyway, tell us about the Easter eggs.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the idea. But I guess if you type certain things or if you use kind of like certain emoticons in a certain way, like different pictures will pop up. They've been kind of secretive about them. So I'm actually still trying to find out some of the Easter eggs myself. But yeah, I guess there's like some hidden features for those people who are really hardcore Hangouts users and are using this every day to talk with their friends.
Yeah, many of the people I know on Google Plus are just obsessed with Hangouts, and they're absolutely going to probably use and love that feature. Now, can you tell us about the location feature? This sounds actually like there's a lot of intelligence behind something that seems very simple.
Yeah. Well, it is very, very simple. Basically, if anyone asks, where are you at, where the letter R, the letter U, different things like this, in Google will be able to recognize those phrases using the same natural language processing that they use for their predictive search results or for Google Now. And if that happens, then a little prompt will come up that says share your location. If you tap that, it will actually embed a small Google map into the conversation that shows your exact location at that point in time. So a little GPS action. And if you don't want to do that, you can just ignore the prompt and it'll go away. But basically what they were saying is a common complaint for Hangouts users was that it's just too hard to figure out where to meet up with your friends. And so they wanted to make that really easy, and they came up with this way to do it. But it also kind of ties into an overarching idea from Google, which is delivering you, predictive search results before you go looking for them, so you kind of don't have to maybe use a competing product, things like this. And they say they want to expand the idea.
It also helps you avoid your friends if you want to do that. Now, let's talk about the contacts integration, including this last scene timestamp. What is that like?
Well, basically, if you jump into a conversation and one of your friends hasn't, maybe you send them a message and they haven't responded yet, it'll let you know kind of the last time that they were in there and taking a look. So while they might be logged into Hangouts, maybe they left their Gmail tab open and they're still technically active in the chat, they might not have actually looked at that for 20, 30 minutes. So you can kind of get a better idea as to whether or not your friends are blowing you off. That's kind of the whole idea around it. There are similar things in other competing apps that say, seen at a certain time, and those kind of fade away. But this is kind of a fresher take on it.
Oh, cool. So can you talk about the gender options in Google Plus? They've pretty radically changed this, and I'm really curious about what you think about it.
Yeah, well, this is actually a really, really big step, to kind of challenge the ideas of gender norms of just being male and female. Facebook did something similar not that long ago, maybe a year ago, but I think they offered about 10 or 12 different options. And what Google Plus is doing is much different. They're actually offering male or female, and then if you want something else, it's custom, and you can just write anything you want. So there are literally, an infinite number of possibilities there. So if you're transgender or cisgender or something like that, any way that you want to identify, whatever feels authentic to you, you can put that in, and then you can also choose, how you're referred to as he or she or something or other, kind of a gender neutral choice. So this is a pretty big deal for folks who are advocating. For different gender issues, and this is literally anything you want to write in there, you can.
It sounds really like a reversal of some of the bad, publicity Google Plus got in the early days. I remember the combination of the real names policy and the very strict and limited options for gender identification really got them a lot of bad press, people saying that it was a kind of an oppressive environment for people with gender identification, labels, self-labels that were outside that range, and then they couldn't, act under a pseudonym or anonymously. Yet now Google Plus has completely removed any requirement for a real name, and now they've opened up an infinity number of possibilities for gender. Do you think this will win back the people who were upset in the beginning?
It's tough to say. Social networks are only as meaningful as the people who use them, right? So Google Plus is already kind of a niche product. It's not as popular as Facebook or Twitter or different things or Instagram even, but it has kind of found its niche audiences of tech nerds or people who are like really passionate about Star Wars, and these different kind of communities that find like-minded folks. And there are a ton of privacy controls on Google Plus that honestly are a bit better and more clear than what Facebook offers. So I think it could actually make a dent, because this really addresses a specific communities of people who are concerned about these issues and are advocates for these issues. So, it might win over some folks by kind of bringing in another more focused community. Whether or not that'll actually happen, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's a good move if they're trying to win people back, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my own opinion is that Google Plus is never going to be bigger than Facebook. It probably will never be half the size of Facebook, but it's way better, and it's nice to see things like this that enhance the quality for people who do use it. So it sounds like a great set of features. Nathan Olivarez-Giles is at WSJ.com, and you can find him on Twitter at NATEOG. Thanks for joining us, Nate.
Thanks.
All right. The Shazam app, which can recognize music, gained a new feature today. The app now offers a news feed with data-driven playlists and personalized recommendations. It shows you trending songs and data-centric charts that show visualizations of hit songs that are on the rise worldwide. The update was put together in a partnership with both Spotify and Rdio, which are the recipients of any songs you choose to save from Shazam. Karissa Bell is a reporter for Mashable and joins us now to talk about it. Hey, Karissa.
Hey.
I'm glad you're here. Now, can you tell us about the new news feed? What kind of news feed appears now in Shazam?
Yeah, so now what happens when you launch the app is, the first thing you still see is the big blue Shazam button. And then, under that, you see a trending chart that identifies which songs are the most popular, the most Shazammed around the world in the last 3 minutes.
Now, how does Shazam arrive at recommendations? How does it know what you like? Is it personalized to your taste, or is it just recommendations for people in general?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, it does, if you're logged into your account, it obviously has a history of every song that you've Shazammed in the past and the tracks that you liked, so that, if it knows that you frequently listen to dance music, then, you might see a dance chart that identifies all the top songs on Shazam in that category.
Now, how did the Spotify and Rdio integrations work?
So Rdio, whether Shazam partnered with Rdio and Spotify, the Rdio already rolled out over the summer. And so if you're a premium subscriber to either of those services, any time that you are searching for a song, either on the charts or you've identified a song and you want to play a full track, you can hit the play button and it will play that song within the app. But then it also adds that song to a My Shazam playlist on either of those services. If you're not a subscriber, what happens is you still just hear a preview and you have the option to upgrade your account if you are a free user.
Feld in the chat room is saying that Shazam always reminds him of Gomer Pyle. That's something I think Gomer Pyle used to say on the Gomer Pyle show. I'd completely forgotten about that. Karissa Bell's at Mashable.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at KarissaBE. Thank you so much for joining us, Karissa.
Thanks.
Swedish police raided the Pirate Bay servers in Stockholm, Sweden yesterday. The file-sharing site went down after the raid, which was conducted in connection with violations of copyright law, according to a statement by the police. This morning, the Pirate Bay popped up again in servers in Costa Rica. That's piratebay.cr if you're curious. The Swedish raid appeared to be part of a nationwide crackdown. Other Swedish file-sharing services, including superbay.org, also went down yesterday. The founders of Pirate Bay were convicted of copyright infringement in 2009, and they've been one by one rounded up and thrown in jail for different infringements. The site moved to the cloud in 2012, so this is the latest in the saga of Pirate Bay. I don't know how they're going to shut it down permanently if it can just move to another country, though. So interesting news about the Pirate Bay. Well, Intel today launched its Internet of Things platform. More specifically, it's a reference platform that's designed to help other companies test and deploy smart gadgets and also make them more secure. Oh, and it's also designed to help them use Intel chips. The company says they expect to grow their Internet of Things division to more than $2 billion in sales this year. That is a surprisingly large number. Instagram said today they have more than 300 million users. If that number is accurate, then the Facebook-owned photo-sharing social network is now bigger than Twitter, which recently claimed 284 million monthly active users. Well, in just a sec, I have some updates for you, but first I want to tell you about ZipRecruiter. You know, I have hired probably 1,000 people in my career. I've fired quite a few as well, and you want to do a lot more of the former and a lot less of the latter. And the way you do that is by hiring great people. That will enable your company or your division or your department or your group to thrive and succeed. And it's there's just no downside to hiring the very, very best candidates you possibly can, and ZipRecruiter is going to help you do that. And the way they do that is that they send your job out to over 50+ job boards, and you can do that with one click, so it's super easy. They also have a well-stocked resume database. It's a huge database, in fact. One of the best places for people who are looking for a job to go is to the ZipRecruiter database, and they've got lots and lots of candidates already there. But for those who aren't in their database, ZipRecruiter will cast your net across all of the major job boards and including the social networks. And so that's a really important way. If you never know where that perfect candidate is going to be, and ZipRecruiter helps you find them. It also saves you a ton of time, too, because when you get the results back, you may get a huge number. I mean, in my experience, the vast majority of people who respond to your job ad are not really qualified. And ZipRecruiter will weed out the unqualified candidates, showing you just the qualified ones so you don't waste your time on people you're not going to hire anyway. Once you have your potential candidates, ZipRecruiter makes it easy to review them, and you can basically hire them really fast. Find out why ZipRecruiter has been used by more than 250,000 businesses. Right now, Tech News Today fans can try ZipRecruiter for a free 4-day trial. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. While writing for Fusion, Kashmir Hill pointed recently to a 2007 interview in CIO magazine in which Jason Spaltro, then the executive director of information security at Sony Pictures Entertainment, said that security is a waste of money. He said back then that it doesn't make sense to invest $10 million to avoid a $1 million loss. But now a story in Reuters is estimating damage from the Sony Pictures hack at $100 million. He should have invested that $10 million, I guess. Well, Apple and IBM today introduced 10 apps that are the fruit of a partnership we told you about on this show on July 16th. The portfolio of apps, which is called IBM Mobile First for iOS solutions, may eventually reach 100 or more. The first batch are cloud-based service apps focusing on the airline, banking, retail, and telecommunications industries. The apps are intended to, quote, transform work, job role by job role, unquote, according to an IBM executive quoted in the joint press release and also on the show just now. We told you Friday about how 2 lead plaintiffs in a lawsuit against Apple were removed from the case after Apple discovered they never bought the iPods in question. The judge in the case, Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers, asked, "What am I supposed to do if I don't have a plaintiff?" Well, now she's got a plaintiff. A new plaintiff has stepped forward, a former ice dancer named Barbara Bennett, so the lawsuit will continue. In other news, wow, what happened to Twitter that upset employees so much? Last year, the San Francisco-based social networking company made the #1 spot as the best place in America to work. This year, Twitter didn't even make the top 50. The Glassdoor Employees' Choice Awards are, as the name suggests, voted on by employees. Meanwhile, the #1 spot was taken by Google, which was #6 for the last 2 years in a row. And Facebook was the best tech company to work for in 2011, 12, and 2013. And this year, Facebook came in at #13 overall. There are now 14 companies in the, there are now 14 technology companies in the top 50. Well, how much do Europeans love their mobile internet? Well, quite a lot, it turns out, according to a new study by the Boston Consulting Group and Google. The real question is, what would Europeans rather give up before they would give up using the internet on their smartphones? The study found that they would gladly trade fast food, chocolate, and even alcohol for an entire week before they would give up their smartphones. They won't give up sex, though. Well, 17% would rather give up sex than smartphones, but most Europeans wouldn't. Well, our TNT fan of the day is David Grant in Tucson, Arizona, who watches TNT while practicing the oboe. And we have a picture of that. It's a very holiday-esque scene. And there we are next to the Christmas tree. That is delightful. They practice the oboe. Apparently, there are pets and children who are also making noise. So me, the pets, the children, the oboe. It's probably not quiet in this house, but there it is. What are you going to do? How do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag #HowIWatchTNT, and we'll find it. That is the Tech News Today, and I want you to subscribe to Tech News Today. It's a really great way to get this show. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, for example. Just search YouTube for Tech News Today. Just click or tap on the subscribe button, and you'll be subscribed. We'll come right to you. Or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV, or join our Google Plus community. Just search Google Plus for Tech News Today and you'll find us. And please send us your thoughts and opinions via email to tnt@twit.tv or by phone at 260-TNT-SHOW. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.